Hello friends, welcome back to Aunt Debbie's Boutique. Today we're going to make the third in our series of jelly roll quilts using this jelly roll by Studio E Fabrics called Melange. And we're going to use this free pattern by Robert Kaufman called Log Jam. Now, it's much prettier online than it is in this picture because my printer is running out of colors, and I do have them on order. They just haven't gotten here yet. So don't let the picture be deceptive here. I'm going to do a completely different color scheme. As you can see, this has a lot of pretty peaches and blues and golds and tans in it. And I'm going to use white for our background. Let's open this up and have a look at it. Oh, such pretty, pretty fabrics. I think this is going to be really pretty when it's done. Okay, since it's a free pattern, I think I can tell you the measurements, but I will put a link to the pattern down in the description box so you can get your own print out. Now it's going to take 36 strips and 144 3.5-inch squares. And this is going to be a very simple pattern to put together. We're going to take, first of all, I'm going to pick 3 fabrics. And I want them a little bit different. Let's see, I need something blue. Let's use this. I think I'll take these 3 and we're going to take them over to the sewing machine, and with right sides together we're going to sew a 1/4-inch seam and sew them into a 3-strip strip unit. So let's go do that. I'm using my 1/4-inch foot so that I keep a consistent 1/4-inch seam. And these fabrics may or may not be the exact same length. So I want to make sure I don't tug on either one of them, the top or the bottom, because that could make your strip turn out kind of curved. So I'm just going to hold on to it loosely and let it come out in the end where it is intended to. And as you can see, they're not exactly the same, but they're close. And that's okay. We don't want to force them to fit. Okay, here's our strip unit. Let's take it back over to the cutting table and iron it open. Now, I don't think it matters which way you iron your seams on this, because I don't believe any of them are going to ever match up. So, I iron untangled here. I think I'll just iron them towards the outside, because that's pretty easy to do. Now then, we need to cut these into blocks. And the best way to do that, see, this is not quite the right width, but it's the widest I think I have. Let's see. This is the right width. We'll just use that. Okay. Now, we want to make sure, and that's not completely, I should not iron on this cutting mat, and when it warps, y'all remind me that I shouldn't have done that. But you want your seams all the way open, and you want to make sure it is a full 6.5, and this is 6.5 inch square. So mine is. If yours happens to turn out to be 6 1/4, then you're going to want to cut your blocks 6 1/4. Because we want our blocks square. But see, mine seems to be right. I'm going to use the 6.5 mark. Okay, this is one block, and we want to get 6 blocks out of every strip. Okay, let's make sure that's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, and then we have this, and I'm going to put this in my scrap bag. That'll make a good scrappy quilt someday. Okay, so we are going to take the other 33 strips and combine 3 together for 11 strip units, and then cutting them into the 6-inch blocks. So I'm not going to make you watch all that. I'm going to go take care of that, and then we'll talk about how we put our blocks together. Well, no, we won't, because our block isn't finished. We'll come back and use our white squares to finish our block. Okay, see you in a little bit. I now have all of my strip units sewn together and cut into 6.5 inch blocks. Now, I did make a mistake earlier in the video when I told you we needed 12 strip units. I miscounted. We need 9 strip units. So you only use 27 of your strips, and I will make a note of that on the screen when I say it wrong in the earlier in the video. So I now have an extra 20 blocks already made up that I can incorporate into another quilt because I made up 12 of them. Okay, once you have those all done, all cut, you need to separate them into piles. We need a pile with 20 blocks, and I took a variety. A pile with 16 blocks, and another pile with 16 blocks. And I need them oriented like this. Then we're going to take our 3.5-inch squares that we made earlier, and I made a mark from corner to corner on all of these. Now, if you prefer to use the strip tape or a different method, that's fine. I just like to have a line I can follow. And we are going to sew on this pile. We're going to sew in these two corners. In this pile, it's going to be these two corners. And on this pile, it's going to be these two. Now, when I sew, I'm going to pull one block out here so it won't be as confusing. I'm going to line this up in the corner, and theoretically you sew right on that line. I like to sew just a hair away, like 1 or 2 threads distance away from that line towards this outside edge. That way, when we fold it up, it goes all the way to the edge. And the reason for that is the fold itself takes up a couple of threads of space. So if you sew right on that line, you might be just a hair short on the edges. I mean, it's still usable, but I find that if I stitch right on the inside or outside, whatever you want to call this, to the right-hand side on here and to the left-hand side here, just a hair over, then I get a nice, pretty rectangle when I'm done. So we're going to sew all these squares into our corners, and we will iron them open and cut off the excess of leave a 1/4-inch seam. Now, if you want, and you don't want to waste this part we're going to be cutting off, you can sew another seam a 1/2 inch away and then cut between them, and then you'll already have another half square triangle for another project. I'll see how long this takes me and whether I have the patience to do that today. I usually don't have that kind of patience when I'm making a video. So I am going to chain these. And I'm going to just take this one stack here of 16 with a bunch of these triangles over to the squares now, over to the machine and chain this pile and show you how I do it. Then after that, I'll do these off camera and we'll be ready to put our quilt together, because then we will have our blocks all done. All right, let's go to the sewing machine. I've switched back to my regular presser foot because the 1/4 inch would drag down on this fabric. I don't know if you can see, that looks like it's almost on the line, but it is a hair over in most places. Now I'm going to cut these apart and do the other side. And I'll meet you back over at the sewing table. I went ahead and took the time to sew that second, to mark and sew that second seam a ½ inch away, because I remembered I have 20 leftover blocks in these fabrics, and I'll have another set of blocks that would make nice cornerstones for some sort of quilt. So I am going to do that on these, so I'll have some more smaller blocks to incorporate somehow in another quilt pattern. Okay, now there's two thoughts on what to do next. You can either go through and cut off right between these two seams all the way through and then iron them, or you can iron them first and then cut. It's faster for me to do it before I iron them. However, a lot of the pros say if you will iron first, you will get a better, it will lay better because you've got the same level on the bottom. That probably is not making sense. I'm not sure it matters which way you do it, but a lot of people say it's better to iron first and then come back. And so I'm going to do that this time. I kind of take turns on how I do it, because I haven't seen that much difference. But it might lay smoother. I just don't know. Do this where it's a little bit streamlined. Okay. Now on these, I ironed them towards the corner. So when we cut this, it's the seam is towards our border fabric here, the white. Now, most of the time you would want to iron towards the dark fabric, and on some of the other orientations I will, but we have to do them different way. I believe this block is going to go like this, and so one of the other blocks that's oriented a different way, I'll iron it towards the darker fabric so that our seams will nest. And here, go ahead and just iron this. I think I'll iron them towards the darker for now. Here are some more half-square triangles that we can use in another project. So I will put that with the rest of my extra blocks, and have another quilt halfway done. All right, here is 1/3 of our quilt blocks all ready to go in our quilt. So I am going to go sew the rest of them, and then we'll meet back here again to look at putting the quilt together. Well, I have all the half square triangles sewn on the blocks, and I discovered a problem. Remember when I told you that I didn't need all 12 strips, I only needed 9 of them, that I'd miscounted? Well, I was wrong. The problem is there's missing information on the pattern. And it shows you these 3 layouts, 20 blocks, 16 blocks, and 16 blocks, which we did. Page 5. Turn to page 6, and it's all about putting the quilt together. Well, there happens to be a 4th orientation that the other 20 blocks went to. So when I got through sewing all this, I had extra half square triangles. I had 40 extra, which was real suspicious. And then I got to counting how many blocks we needed, and I finally figured out what it was, that there's an orientation missing on here. And so I have written it in my pattern for future reference, but if you're going to be making this pattern, you'll want to make note of that too. Now, this is a free pattern, so I can't complain. And I'm thinking maybe, let's see, it's Robert Kaufman. I'm thinking maybe somebody has caught this by now and they've put out a correction, but wherever I downloaded this from still had the old pattern, because all these quilt shops carry these free patterns. And I don't know where I got it, probably either Missouri Star Quilts or Jordan Fabrics or Fat Quarter Shop. Those are the ones that I shop at the most. So maybe one of them had an older version. I don't know. But hopefully they've corrected this by now. But anyway, so we're back to using all 12 strips. So 36 strips, 12 strip units. Now that we've got that figured out, let me also tell you that I figured out how to iron it. It doesn't tell you in here. So on this one, you will iron away from the half square triangle. This one, you iron away from the half square triangle. And okay. And then these two, you iron towards the half square triangle. I hope, yeah, that's right. Yes, because the ones that have 20 blocks, here's one of them that goes one direction, one goes the other. The ones that have 16 blocks, one goes one direction, one goes the other. Okay. That way they will nest properly. And I have this bonus of 144 half square triangles that I am going to make a doll quilt out of, because I also have 4 strips left from my jelly roll, and that will make a nice binding. So I'm going to put those over there to be dealt with later. And there's all sorts of cute half square triangle patterns out there. Okay, I've got these in this particular order because this is how they go together. And we've got, so they have a triangle, and these, so they make a triangle. So you want to make sure you can check with the pattern. It shows you how to orient them. But I'm going to go through then. I'm going to lay these 20 blocks over here to the side to deal with later, and just deal with these 16 blocks. I want to try to find ones that go together that don't have the same fabrics. So I'm gonna flip through here before I take them on the sewing machine and make sure I don't have at least the same, exact same order, because it's hard not to get some fabrics that are the same touching each other. I'll switch this around and those two will go together. Okay, now when we do this, we want right sides together, and we want that seam to across there at an angle to just nest together. And then pin the two ends. And we're ready to go. When I get over to the machine, I will probably sew to about here, stop and make sure it's nesting right, sew to the end. So I'm going to go through and pin these together and make sure I don't have any wild combinations where they're the exact same fabrics. And then we'll take them over to the machine and stitch this first seam. Okay, look at how this came out. I've got the exact same fabrics, and obviously we don't want that. I'm just going to take one, put it on the bottom, and hope it all comes out right. Okay, I have these 16 sets all put together, and I press the seams to the right. Now, we have, like I said, 16 sets, so we're going to do 4 rows of 4. And this is probably not going to completely show on the camera. But we have them arranged in upside down V's. Now I went ahead and did the 20 sets also. And the reason there's 20 sets of these and only 16 of these is because these are on the odd number rows. They're going to be on rows 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So there's 5 rows of those. These are on 2, 4, 6, and 8. And there's only 4 rows of those. So We're going to start with a row out of the stack of 20. And the way you can tell the difference is the odd number rows, the very first part of it is going up and down. The even numbered rows, the very first part is going left to right. So that's how you tell if you happen to get things mixed up, you'll know which pile they go in. And once again, it's going to be in rows of 4. And I can already tell, like, these are exactly alike. So I'm going to put one of them on the bottom here. And this is the way we're going to sew them together. So I'm going to sew each row together, just 4 sets together. And then the next row, and then the next row. And then I'll sew all the rows together. Now, I don't have a good place to lay this all out this time. My daughter just bought a house and moved out, or she's in the process of moving out, and she has my dining room table piled high with boxes, and my little temporary design board is not big enough for this. So I am just going to put this together, and then I will hang it up somewhere and show you the result at the end. The good news is once she gets completely out of here and I get reorganized, I'm going to have room for a nice big design wall, and we won't have to deal with that anymore. So I appreciate your patience on that. Let me get started putting these rows together, and I'll show you the quilt when we're done. And here's my finished quilt top. I hope you can see it okay there displayed over my couch. I'm pleased with how it turned out. I did have problems getting keeping the fabrics spread out so like fabrics weren't touching each other. So there's a lot of places that they did, but that's just the nature of the beast when we only had I forget how many original pieces of fabric in this. So all in all, I really liked making this quilt. It was easy, it was fun. The reason it took me so long to get it done and up here is because I've been helping my daughter with her move, and so I could only work on it for a few hours at a time. And I hope to pick up speed now on my channel again. The next thing we're going to do is finish the village quilt. I've got 2 more videos on that that'll be coming out just back to back here real soon. And then we'll go back to making more jelly roll quilts for a while. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Again, this pattern was called Log Jam, and it's by Robert Kaufman. But remember, there was an error in my pattern, and refer back to that part on this video so you don't have the same problems I did. I thank you for joining me, and because it's been a while since I posted a video, YouTube doesn't like that, and I know it's going to be hard to get a lot of views on this one. You kind of have to build up some steam. So I appreciate it if you could like it, subscribe, comment, anything you could do. Watch it over and over again. Tell your friends to watch it, or just watch some more of my other videos. It really helps me. And I hope to be back on track and try to get at least 2 to 3 videos, if not 4, every month. So until next time, just remember, whatever you do, do it to the glory of the Lord. Thank you.